The story of Famagusta is very special for me because I was a child who grew up in Benfleet, Essex. I was born in London, and I was brought up listening to stories about Famagusta and listening to my parents describing that we would return to Famagusta. And I didn't understand as a child what this was all about. And then when I went to live there, I went from the grey, slimy Essex to multicolour, to heat, to all of my senses blown away. And I had a really, really happy childhood there. I loved going to school. I loved the town. I loved having family. And then the war happened in 1974. And so on the 13th of August, we had to leave our town. So it's very emotional. And this performance is extremely emotional for me. I have never been interested in anything autobiographical. It's not been a format that has interested me at all. I'm really drawn to fiction. And when I started performing, and I started performing solo, I was more interested in creating personas. But at the same time, I was haunted by the objects that we had from our town. And every year from July the 15th, which is the day the Greek junta came to Cyprus and there was a military coup, and this kick-started the summer of 1974. So every year from the 15th of July, I look at my childhood diaries. And my mother gave me the suitcase that we left with, her embroideries, my own diaries. And every year I look through them, and I began to feel quite obsessed with maybe this needs to get out there. It hasn't been easy. It's very emotional. And what's interesting is that the first part of my process was recreating going back to the music that influenced me at the time. My first memories of music before Famagusta and during Famagusta. It was almost as if in the process, I didn't want to go to the most painful part of losing our home. I found it really difficult, and it's difficult knowing that you're going to be on stage with all of your vulnerabilities. I'm often asked, why don't you forget what happened? Why don't you get over what happened? Why are you still obsessed with this town? And it's a question that's very difficult to answer. Famagusta, we lived in the area that's known as Varosha, which is now fenced off by the Turks. So as refugees, we could never really quite mourn the fact that our homes have been taken, because our area where we live has been used as a political tool. And that feeling of my house is there, but I can't go, is always there. And when I went recently to Varosha, where 2 streets have opened, it was very painful to swim where I swam as a child. And then there is a barrier. And if I could cross that barrier and run up to my home, I would have given anything. So the making of this play has made me realize that we are upset to the extent that we don't want to remember the full pain. And so I feel that getting this story out there is also about owning our pain and owning our resilience and to help an audience who may have been through similar experiences. I have to heal my own pain. It's very vulnerable as a solo performer, regardless of what you're performing, to be on a stage and exposing yourself. And in this, I am reliving myself 0 to 12. And so I go back to being a child and I need to be looked after. And it's a difficult process to write. It's a difficult process to get into my head and to explore all of those processes. So when I see my team, I'm really excited. I'm not on my own. We can laugh, we can talk, we can go for coffee. We have other things that unite us. I hope we have a great time together. So this makes the process for me a joy. So because the process is a joy, this enables me to reenact parts of the story that are very painful. The other aspect is that each person brings their own dimension and that it becomes something that isn't just my story, it becomes something that belongs to all of us on the team. Everybody has their own perspective, and I absolutely love this. I love that I can sit back and see, how is that seen? How is that viewed? It makes the project multi-dimensional. It's also very important for me that we as a team think about, how is this experience for the audience? And so to be working with people who are on the same page and who are always thinking, okay, how's this going to look? What do we want to say? What do we want to give the audience? How do we want to connect with the audience? Is an amazing experience. I feel that it's very important in our society to have connection and community, and for a child to feel safe and happy, and for children to thrive, we need to create societies in which there are connections and there is a sense of community, whether that's at school, whether that's in a neighborhood, whether that's in areas of a city that we live in. I feel it's important that we enjoy our moments together, and that we live in a society in which, despite wars going on, that we feel by creating community with each other and connection, we are resisting the divisions imposed on us, that we are resisting political narratives. The British foreign policy is more or less the same, regardless of which government is in power. I think it's great that in recent years, citizens of the UK are realizing what our governments allow, and that there is protests, that there are protests. And the more that we create community, the more we can create resistance, the more that we can feel we're not powerless. We can put pressure on our local politicians and ultimately the key politicians to change foreign policy, because every war that happens comes as a result of economic interests, strategic interests, political interests. I need this story to get out there because I'm not the only person who was displaced as a child. And I think with recent history in the UK and a whole anti-refugee narrative, which I found and still find very triggering very upsetting. I wanted to find a way to recreate what it means for a child to lose a place that they love, a community where they feel safe. And I wasn't sure how it would turn out. And last year we had a trial performance, which went well. So we'll see how it goes this year.